session. And we have this panel that I kind of got to handpick and put together, which was sort of really fun. And we're excited to talk about community service because this is something I'm absolutely passionate about, as are all of the members of our committee. And with the wonderful choices you have today in which subsection to select, we're thrilled that you picked this one as well. We encourage you we want this to be interactive. We had no idea how many people would be joining this session. And so we're hoping to not just be sort of the talking heads in doing this. We would love to have you turn on your screens if you feel comfortable doing that. If you don't, that's fine too. We don't mind children and mess in the background and everything like that, but we would love to just have you join our conversation about community service. And we hope to use the chat. So as you think of questions, put them in the chat. Jenny's going to be following the chat for us to make sure we don't miss anything. And we might throw out some questions as well to have everyone's participation. What we decided to do as we were organizing how to work this session, we came up with sort of some topic areas that we felt were really critical to discuss in this. And so each of the four of us are going to introduce ourselves and our background of how we came into doing the types of community service that we've been involved with over the years. And then we're going to, each of us will address one of those topics. And then we're going to open it up for questions and answers and just to have more of a discussion and kind of conclude by talking about why is community service so important to us as individually and for our families and for our communities and things like that. And we want to hear your perspectives on that as well. So we're going to go ahead. Babita is going to start out in introducing herself and kind of answering her topic question.
Thank you, Susan. My name is Babita Sonnenberg, and I've always had a passion for public interest work. In fact, when I graduated from BYU with my undergraduate degree, I applied to a master's in social work program and also the law school at the University of Utah. And I was actually accepted into both programs. And that was a hard decision for me to make because I really loved both and wanted to pursue both. And a joint degree wasn't an option at that time. In the end, I decided to pursue a master's in social work. So I loved my 2 years at the University of Utah, and then I worked 2 years full-time as a therapist for LDS Family Services down in St. George. I worked with adoptive couples, I worked with birth parents, and I worked with other individuals with mental and emotional health issues. And it was a fantastic time. I found myself still in the courtroom quite often, testifying for adoptive couples or for birth parents. And it just fueled, again, that interest and the law. And I knew if I wanted to continue my interest in public service, that a law degree would only enhance that. So I reapplied 4 years later after applying the first time, got into Brigham Young University Law School and moved up there. I found out I was pregnant with my first daughter 2 weeks before I started law school, and then had her a week before finals of 1L finals at the end of the year. And BYU was incredible. They allowed me to take finals, my newborn right outside the door with my sister. If I needed to nurse her, she'd knock on the door, they paused the finals, and they really worked with me. Graduated law school with actually 2 little girls. And after that summer, worked hard, took the bar exam, passed that, and decided to stay home full time with my girls. And I loved it. I loved the time at the parks. I loved the time at the petting zoo, playing princesses. And I loved the time I had with them when they were so young. And then in the next 9 years, I had 4 more daughters. During this time of having babies and raising babies, I was also very diligent about keeping up on all the licenses I had earned, social work and law, continuing education. And I also wanted to keep my hand in the law. I wanted to stay involved in law and in social work, and I wanted to combine those 2 interests. I approached an adoptive father who I knew was also the partner in a law firm. And his name is Paul MacArthur, if you know MacArthur Heater and Metler down in Provo. And I asked him, I said, I'm interested in this. I work for LDS Family Services. I know you're an adoptive father. I know you do adoptions here. Can I learn from you? Can I attend some court hearings with you? And he was so generous, and so inviting and so welcoming. And he mentored me in adoption law. And so that became my first part-time interest, was working with adoptive couples on the legal end of it now. And I just felt comfortable there. After working with Paul for a while, we developed a friendship, and he sat on the board for a Child's Hope Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that works with orphans in Mexico and in Haiti. And he invited me to attend some of those board meetings. As I attended those board meetings, they asked if I wanted to become more involved. So I ended up joining their board and have been on their board for the last 6 years now, and going to Mexico, traveling with them, and just contributing in that way. And it's been an incredible experience. So I am grateful for the opportunities that a law degree has given me in the community. And one of those has been working with Paul on pro bono and adoptions. Another one has been our involvement in a Child's Hope Foundation, which has been wonderful. And probably my favorite has been Tuesday nights at the Family Justice Center. I was kind of hoping, I don't, Susan would go first so she could talk about her work and I could say yes. So I won't introduce it. I'll let her talk about that. But I do spend Tuesday nights at the Family Justice Center, and it's a free legal clinic in downtown Provo. It's a walk-in clinic, so there's not like a continuing representation, but you're able to meet with clients. And it has been very meaningful work, important work, and it has been a great education. I feel like it's been a great balance of staying familiar with the law, and serving and being involved in the community. So I've really enjoyed that opportunity as well. That opportunity has also led to other opportunities. Tatiana Christensen is on now as well, and she works for Utah Legal Services. I've also had the opportunity to represent a few clients through Utah Legal Services on a pro bono basis. So I loved what Josh Randall said about saying yes. Saying yes to Paul got me involved with the Child's Hope Foundation. That's been really meaningful. Saying yes to Susan when I attended a free CLE, and she asked, I remember the first time I paid for the CLE, she's like, you don't have to pay for this if you volunteer at the clinic. I didn't feel comfortable giving family law advice. And so I remember going to the clinic and sitting with her several times until finally one evening she said, why don't you try sitting by yourself and taking a client? And I did, and I said yes to that. And it's been an incredible experience. I just also wanted to say, I only have a few minutes, but I just wanted to finish and say, I also love the opportunities the law has given us to work with family and friends. Even this past week, I've had a family member that was evicted, and just having my experience at the legal clinic, it formed relationships. I was able to ask a few questions and help with this family member had been evicted from their apartment. I've had a nephew heavily involved in trying to get out of his drug usage, and he went back to jail recently, which has been devastating for my sister. But because of our relationships within the law, I found a great attorney, a criminal defense attorney that I've been able to speak with and work with and communicate with my nephew who's in jail, who can call me anytime. But just having that basis, it's been wonderful. So I think that's past my 6 minutes, but that's.
Sorry, trying to find my unmute.
Oh, you're good.
Thank you so much, Bob. One of the things that we tried to do in creating this committee is to have a variety of viewpoints. And I just love Baba, who's so committed to her 6 beautiful daughters and their millions of activities. They're all involved in so many different things. And she will come to our clinic, and kind of sometimes dash in and go, I just dropped off this child at soccer practice and I'm about to go pick up this child at music, but I have an hour I can meet with someone. And she just finds that way. Most people would go, I'm really busy, I don't have time for that. But she, you think about the number of people that over the weeks of a year that she is able to influence and help just by coming between those things to kind of to help that one person in that amount of time. And it's really, really amazing. I just love that. So next we're going to have Tatiana talk, and she is sort of representing our nonprofit experience. She has worked for years with Utah Legal Services in different capacities, and she has helped many, many people find ways to do community service by organizing that through her work at the nonprofit. So I'll turn over the time to Tatiana.
Thanks, Susan. And thank you, Barbara, for your pro bono work with us. It is very, very appreciated. And like Susan, I'm amazed that you find the time to do it, but it makes a huge difference to our clients and to us. So a little intro about myself. I'm from Tallahassee, Florida originally. I did my bachelor's degree at New York University in acting. And then I served a mission in Santiago, Chile for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And after my mission, I was kind of questioning, what should I do with my life? And one of my companions who had trained me was a first year at BYU Law School at the time. And she said, why don't you just come here? I think you'd be great at this. And I thought, well, it'll help me pay off my student loans that I have from NYU, which are considerable to be a lawyer. And so I will go to BYU Law School. And luckily I got in and I applied and everything worked out. While I was at law school, I kind of fell in love with the idea of public interest work. And part of that was attending Susan Griffith's child advocacy class, which was a great hands-on experience. Part of it was doing an externship between second and third year at Utah Legal Services under Patty Abbott Lammy, who was my mentor there. And after I graduated law school, my husband ended up doing some graduate work in London. So we spent a couple years in London, and while I was there, I was unable to work. But when we came back, Patty Abbott Lammy reached out to me and said, there's going to be a position available at Utah Legal Services, and I think you should apply. And so I did end up applying there and getting a job there. I've been working there since 2010 and started out doing domestic law and then moved over to expungements. And then for the last several years, I've been doing pro bono, mentoring, recruiting, and training and retaining, hopefully, volunteers for the pro bono program there. So that has been really satisfying. I was 7 months pregnant with my eldest when I graduated law school. And then I had a couple other kids. I've got 3 kids. And so it's been really a blessing to see how I've been able to, I feel very lucky that I've been able to balance and have a multiple, sort of things going on in my life at once, between kids and doing work part-time at ULS and all of that. Recently, within the last year, during the pandemic, in the last 12 months, I went down from 30 hours to 20, and then I went down from 20 to 10 because things were just getting a little overwhelming with the stage of life that my kids are in right now. And I love, as has been mentioned at this conference so many times, I love having allies who are willing to help us achieve what we need to achieve and strike that balance in our life. When I told my direct supervisor, Eric Middlestadt at ULS, that I was struggling with this idea of, how can I do my job and deal with these personal things at home? And I said, I just want to do what's best for ULS. And he said to me, Tat, whatever is best for you is best for ULS. And I'm just so grateful to have someone supportive like that. And I would suggest that we all seek that kind of place to work because it really makes such a huge difference. when Susan asked me to join this panel and talk about leadership, the thing that kept returning to my mind was mentors and mentoring. And it's not, I know I don't have a lot of time. I could talk about this for a long time because I'm so grateful for the mentors that have helped me along the way, but it's not something extra. A lot of times we're overwhelmed thinking I can't add one more big project to my list like mentoring, but it's integrated into who we are. It's integrated into everything that we do, mentoring. And so it's my mission companion who was going to law school mentored me by saying, hey, you should come to law school. This is, you would be a good fit here. Jane Wise, when I was at BYU Law School, who was one of the writing instructors, mentored me by giving me time in her office to talk about what I wanted out of life, what I wanted out of my career. And she talked me through those conversations. She gave me that time. Susan Griffith, as I've already mentioned, mentored me by making that class available to me and give me those kind of opportunities to explore public interest law and child advocacy. Constance Erickson, who was another professor at the law school, mentored me by encouraging me to come apply for a job at her firm when I first graduated as the law librarian at Jones Waldo. Patty Abbott mentored me by having me as her extern and encouraging me in that way. And then as I joined ULS, other colleagues have mentored me by giving me that time and space to talk about what I want to happen with my life and my career and giving me encouragement along the way. So, we can all do that. We can all make that time for others and encourage women to do whatever feels right for them in their stage of life that they're in. As I was studying for the Sunday school lesson this week about the founding of Relief Society, it all started with one woman saying, hey, I see this need in the community and I want to do it, but I don't have the funds. I have the skills, but I don't have funding to do it. And saying this to another woman and that woman being able to provide the funds and start this. So I think those conversations can be really simple when they start, but can turn into something huge. And that's what I see when I look around at this kind of society and the kind of networking that we have. We have the ability to make big things happen out of those small conversations. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Tat. That's beautiful. So Kristen is now going to talk to us. We're so excited to have her. She can speak from this perspective of working. She's with Dorsey and Whitney, big firm, and children and family and all of those responsibilities, and still was instrumental in the creation of the Utah Utah Center for Legal Inclusion, UCLE, and did that during this very busy time of her life and her commitment to community service. So we're going to have her talk about her pathway and her experience.
Thank you, Susan. I have always loved community service opportunities. So before law school, I started nonprofits and I just took every opportunity I had to get involved in a lot of cool causes. And then I decided in my 30s with 2 young kids to attend law school. And I thought, oh, this will be great. I'll just be able to use my law degree to do all this great nonprofit work and public interest work. And then I found myself accepting a job at an international corporate law firm where I would learn how to do corporate litigation and employment law, which is totally different, a totally different path than I thought I would take. And I got a lot of really good advice when I started practicing about 7 years ago. Everybody, and this is kind of my assigned topic, so I'll weave it into my introduction, but everybody told me, you must set boundaries. So you're going to have your practice and everybody's going to come to you with all these new opportunities to serve, and you have to learn how to say no to them. And like all, probably really good advice that I receive in my life, I promptly ignored it. And I entered the law just kind of with open arms thinking, okay, I'm going to be, a corporate litigator, but I'm going to say yes to everything. So any kind of community service or bar service or firm committee work that will be unpaid and I'll just do on the side, I'm going to say yes to it all. So my first year of law school, I was approached to start this nonprofit that Susan mentioned, the Utah Center for Legal Inclusion, which didn't have a name or a vision or anything when a past president of UMBA came to me and said, hey, we need an organization to advance equity, inclusion, diversity in the legal community. You've started nonprofits before, so start this one in your first year. And so I said yes, because that was the mode I was in. And that opportunity, you know, I recruited Justice Christine Durham from the Supreme Court in Utah to be the co-chair of our board. And the opportunity gave me this chance as a first-year associate and second and third and fourth year and so on to meet all these really incredible people and learn from them and build my professional network through that nonprofit experience. My first year of law school, I was always also approached to be on the Utah Bar Summer Convention Committee. And so I said, sure, I'll do that too. And I ended up through sheer luck getting a nationally recognized keynote speaker to join. So through a series of events over the year, they promoted me to co-chair of the committee. So my very first summer convention I ever attended in Utah was I was co-chairing it and trying to help run it. So that opportunity was excellent. I had a blast and it was so much fun. So actually I said yes to everything that came my way and I didn't regret that, surprisingly. I didn't set those kinds of boundaries and that was okay for me because it gave me sort of a reason to be excited to go to work in the morning because I got to participate in all of these extra really fun things that I was passionate about. But there did come a time where I realized that boundaries were in fact important and I needed to figure out how to set them because with 2 young kids and I ended up getting pregnant, so then 3 kids at home and saying yes to all these amazing service opportunities and then trying to keep clients happy and fill hours, it became very overwhelming. But from me and my experience, I actually still didn't feel comfortable saying no to the nonprofits and the community service and the bar service and the firm service, because that's really where my passion was and where I wanted to invest my energy. So I looked at my life and I decided to set boundaries in other places. So I ended up setting more boundaries at work that I felt comfortable with. And I went home and I set boundaries at home and I said, okay, I need some more time and I need some more help. So I recruited my husband and other people to help me set boundaries where I felt comfortable so that I could continue this community service work that I loved so much and that really brought meaning and purpose to my daily work at a corporate law firm. But I think an important lesson that I did learn about boundaries is that our need for boundaries and where we place them is fluid. And we kind of have to make choices and re-examine where we've set boundaries as we go along. So my kids' needs changed and my career needs changed. And I kind of had to re-examine boundaries and decide when to accept opportunities and when not to in all areas of my life. And I'm still re-examining them on a regular basis. And then the last thing I'll mention on that topic is just that, and I think this is probably the most important thing I've learned about boundaries in my career, and that is if you don't learn how to set boundaries, your body will set them for you. I last year found myself, like probably a lot of other people, trying to work from home and continue on with my practice and make clients happy, which in employment law, that work became much more demanding when everybody started working from home. And then I had homeschooling kids and a 2-year-old running around, and I just realized that my situation was totally unsustainable. And I was still running this nonprofit and trying to do all of my community service as well. And last summer, my body just shut down. I started having really horrible, scary health issues. And so I had to totally step back. I didn't know in a pandemic how to set boundaries, but my body set those boundaries for me and I had to step back from everything and kind of do a ton of tests and figure out what was causing the problems, which I think were in part exacerbated by sort of this unsustainable situation that I had found myself in. So I recommend reading The Body Keeps the Score, which is a book by a doctor named Bessel van der Kolk, I believe. But it kind of shows like how when we don't prioritize our health and our stress levels, and we just keep going in these unsustainable situations, or we don't address the traumas that we're experiencing, that there's a lot of data to support that our bodies will end up having a lot of pretty serious health problems if we can't figure out how to do that. So those are the kinds of things that I've learned in my corporate career, trying to prioritize community service, but also recognizing that our boundaries are changing constantly, and we have to pay attention to what's sustainable in our lives. So that's me.
Thank you so much. I really believe that it's those of us that love community service that have the hardest time setting those boundaries, because how can you say no to doing one more really great thing that often we're in a unique position to be able to do it because of the skills that we have, and it's incredibly difficult. So we all felt like that was such an important part of our discussion today. Thank you for talking about that with your wonderful perspective. So my name is Susan Griffith. I'm the executive director of Timpanogos Legal Center, which is a nonprofit that provides free legal services to low-income people. When my pathway to law was very different. At about age 14, I was really committed to having, 12 or 16 kids was my thought at that time. And as I was expressing my love and desire to have an absolutely enormous family, I came from a family of 3. So that was a big change. And I was telling my dad about this, and he said, he said, that's great. And then he pointed out, his sister was expecting her 5th child when her husband died unexpectedly. And so he said, keep in mind as you're making these plans for your family that you should have a way to make sure that you could provide for your family if that ever happened, if you were ever in that situation. And so I started thinking as a 14-year-old, well, what would I do with all of these children and that? And I was like, I think I'll go to law school. And I really honestly don't know how that connection came because I didn't know any lawyers. And I further can't explain why my desire was to work with juvenile delinquency, because I didn't know any juvenile delinquents either. But that became really hard and fast in my mind at this really young age. And so I knew if I wanted to have all of the children I wanted, I would need to go to law school as soon as I possibly could. And so I started actually attending. This was before they had all kinds of concurrent enrollment and things like that. But they had a handful of AP classes. I started going to BYU while I was in high school, like actually leaving campus and going to regular BYU classes the summer after my junior year and throughout my senior year. And so when I entered law school, I was 20 and graduated at the ripe old age of 22. I turned 23 the next month, but I was so young, and I hadn't even, I lived with my family while I went to law school. When I think about my first clients that I handled and my lack of world experience and having their lives in my hands, it's really, I can only imagine what their thoughts were at this young, still acne, still, everything, as their attorney, helping them. I hadn't heard the term public interest work prior to going to law school, but I knew that was what I wanted to do. I just didn't know what that world was. And so after my first year of law school, I went and knocked on the door of a county attorney that was in the juvenile court and said, I want to work here. Can I volunteer with you and find out what this is about? And he was absolutely wonderful and helped get me connected with actually people that I worked with for the next 20 or 25 years before they retired. And I got to see everything from, probation and DCFS and all of the different components that were working in our community. And I loved it. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And as I was looking at all of these juvenile court files, I started realizing how many of the kids that we were seeing in delinquency started out having been abused or neglected as young children. And that's what sent me down kind of the abuse path. As I talked to the attorney about it, he said, if you want to understand what's going on, he goes, you need to go to the divorce courts and learn what's happening there. And that is what sent me to that place for the rest of my career. I never went back to juvenile delinquency. I stuck to the area of domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual assault. And I worked at, so I quickly went to an externship at Utah Legal Services, and once I was there, I wanted to stay there forever. I just absolutely loved that work. I was so passionate about the domestic violence cases that we were starting to handle. I got to work with the very first protective order program that was developed in the state of Utah. We wrote the first grant out of the Provo office, and I just absolutely loved every minute of that work. And then my husband graduated from school. We moved to California, and I wasn't working during that time. And when I came back, I was like, now what? What's next? Now I have a couple of kids, and I still want to work, but I wanted to also, being a mom was very important to me as well. And it was at that time that it opened up for me to be able to work at the law school part-time, which was just such a beautiful, beautiful blessing. I got to keep my hands in sort of all of the work, teach the classes on the subjects that I loved. And then as my kids started getting older, I always thought I would go back into litigation, but as I was working in the community, there are, so Utah Legal Services does a beautiful job in Utah, but for example, the Provo office has 4 attorneys that covers 2/3 of the geographical area of the state. And there is no possible way that they can take all of the cases of the people that qualify. And so there was a group of us there had been actually several groups that had looked at creating a new program that could address some of those big gaps that existed in services. And so a group of us came together and said, we really believe that there's a lot of attorneys who would do pro bono work, but they're in corporate work, they're in transactional work, they don't do family law, and that's where the need is at. So how do we make it safe for attorneys to do pro bono work in an area that's not familiar? Because no one wants to commit malpractice on the free case that they're doing work on. And so our whole goal was to create a program that would allow for that kind of thing, where we could give the support and mentoring and training to attorneys to be involved, use their skills to be able to help other people. And that was sort of the catalyst for the beginning of Timpanogos Legal Center. And it's been such a joy over these last 11 years to provide these opportunities to where we really, it's a hand-in-hand mission. It's not only providing top quality services for low-income people, but the focus really is on giving attorneys the opportunity to be involved in the community by helping individuals in these different cases. And so training and recruiting and supporting and mentoring is all a really instrumental part of our purpose. And when you talk about doing this kind of community work or being a community leader, I love studying the New Testament because I know when I went to law school, I wanted to change all of the things. I wanted to make it so that, we reduce all of these problems. And 33 years later, the statistics of abuse are still going up. They're not going down, even though we've all invested so much in trying to stop that, right? These things aren't going away. You want to make big, most of us are very passionate about this. You want to go in and make big sweeping changes in the system and help solve some of these problems. But when you look at the New Testament approach, you think about what Christ did during his ministry. Almost every example that we have is him helping one-on-one the person who's in need. And I think that's a terrific message to all of us. We should try and help where we can on the top levels of changing laws and changing structures and changing the way society looks at things, and some of those more powerful things that will impact how things are handled. But I think we also need to not forget that it's about helping the individual. And that was just recently, I was at a shelter talking to some people who were there, and I was talking to a young mom who literally had to just leave the situation that she was in. And when she left, her partner grabbed the child out of her arms and said, "You're out, but the child is staying." And she was out. She couldn't get back into the house. Now she didn't have her child. And she explains to me that she said, "I grew up in care," which means in foster care. And she says, "I have no one. I have no one who will help me." And she was so young and facing the worst fear that anyone could experience, having your child just literally ripped out of your arms. And when were you going to get to see your child again, and what was going to happen to that child? And as she was just looking at me with this pain in her eyes, I just couldn't help but think what a privilege it is for those of us with a law license to say, "We can help you. I can help you. You aren't alone in this." And the thing that's even, I thought, more important was, I still have to have a professional relationship with her. I wanted to just hug her and kind of be her mom. But what I could explain to her was how good the community resources were around her. Because not only do I work with people who can provide legal services to people like her, but I work with people that do therapy, people who provide housing, people who can help her get on assistance, people who can fill all of the holes that are in her life at that moment. I can connect her with those resources. And it really does take a community of resources to help a person that's in that kind of situation. And so really, whatever your interest is, whatever speaks to you, for me, it's domestic violence. I will work on domestic violence cases until I don't have breath anymore. But maybe for you, it's immigration, or maybe for you, it's people with disabilities, or maybe for you, it's discrimination. I mean, there's so many different causes and needs that are in our society. And the thing that is so wonderful about everyone that's on this screen right now is we have skills, we know people, we have resources, and we can help someone. It doesn't have, we don't have to set aside everything else that we're doing. We can do something for someone that is in a place of need, that doesn't have anyone else, that doesn't have any opportunities, that doesn't have any support. And I think that's the thing that's so incredible about being part of a group like this. I wanted to talk just really briefly about, so I know that a lot of you aren't working in Utah. One of our great things about J. Reuben Clark Law Society is we're across the world. And so we need to talk about, how do you find the places where you can make a difference? And the answer is, depending on your interest and depending on your location, you don't have to create a new agency. You don't have to do that. There's a lot of people think, "Oh, I really have always wanted to do something about this. I should go start a nonprofit," which, as Kristen explained, you can do that, but also you can attach yourselves to somebody who's already out in the community, who already knows what the needs are, and join your skills and your abilities to something that already exists. And so I would encourage you to become familiar with what's in your community. What is the topic that speaks to you, where you have always wanted to make a difference? Go find out who the movers and shakers are in your community that's in that subject area, and talk to them and find out what the needs are. It might be joining as a board member, or you might really feel the need to know, I want to be where the rubber meets the road and actually talk to the people who are impacted by the things that you care about. But talk to them. Every single state in the United States has a legal services corporation funded agency, and most states have multiple ones. Utah is sort of unique that we have one for the whole state. Call those people, say, I've been thinking about volunteering. What kind of opportunities you have? They are going to connect you to what is happening in your area. And you can find things like what I've been talking about today, dealing with abuse, neglect, those kinds of things. But they also do more. They do things with housing. They do things with, it really actually depends on the local area as far as what kind of services are there. You can also look to your bar associations. Most bar associations have programs that they either run or they support. And so your own bar association can connect you with committees or groups or different programs. That's an opportunity. And most programs right now are looking for ways to use volunteers in a limited scope so that you don't have to take the entire case. You can do something that is more limited and won't sort of take over your whole life, but you can still make a significant difference. So I encourage you to find those things. All right, so let's see, have we had any? I haven't looked at the chat. Okay, let's see. Maybe let's talk about some of the barriers to getting involved in community service work. If you just get on the chat and throw out whatever kinds of issues have come up for you in providing community service work that you would like to get involved in, and maybe we can talk to how we address some of those barriers. And in the meantime, because we only have a few minutes left, maybe we'll throw out to the panel. The question is, why is community service so important to us individually and to our families and to our community? And I'm interested, for those of you that are on the session as well, even if you're not a panelist, you can put those comments to you in as well, what your own experiences with community service are and how it has helped you individually, or how it's helped your family, or how it's helped your community. All right. So any one of our panelists, do you want to start out with any thoughts on that topic? Kristen?
All right, sure. One thing that just came to mind that goes along with your question is that I think that we've been talking a lot about sort of legal community service opportunities, and I love being involved with those legal pro bono cases and nonprofits that help the legal community and low-income families. There are so many wonderful other opportunities where it's not focused on law at all, but we can bring such a unique perspective. So this goes into sort of why community service. I'm on a board called the local Utah chapter of a board called GLSEN, which is committed to creating safe spaces, mostly for LGBTQ+ teens or youth in K through 12 schools. And so it's not a legal nonprofit at all, but it's been so great to get in there. And I've created a sort of legal and policy committee where we're working a lot with different laws and school board policies and things like that, and trying to help educate people on the laws surrounding the issues that K through 12 schools are going through. So I think that the law degrees that we have can really help our communities within the legal field, and then also just in other nonprofits and areas that need a lot of help. We can bring that unique perspective. For me personally, I love being involved with all of these kinds of things because it's really what enhances my legal career, and it makes it worthwhile for me. And it's also really helped me, like I mentioned, kind of build this network of wonderful attorneys and people that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to meet And that's been helpful in my career and just in my personal life as well, because I've made dear friends through that experience. So, and then the last thing I'll mention on this topic before I close is just that my kids don't care at all about what I do at work. They're like so bored with my cases and anything I'm doing with billable hours and clients. But they really light up when they start talking about the things I'm doing in a nonprofit or in service experiences and opportunities where I'm using my law degree. So it's helped me kind of, I think, I helped my kids kind of have a better perspective of what I do overall with my law degree, because I get to tell them about these really cool and exciting ways that I'm helping people, not billable clients, but other people through my law degree. So that's what is helpful for me to continue the work.
Thank you, Kristen. I love that. Babada?
I love Kristen's last comment about the impact on our families and our children. I have a 16-year-old, and she's got a couple years left, and we were talking about what she wants to do. She goes, I want to go to law school, and I want to be a 1L, and I want to go to that clinic with you. And she's never been, and or doesn't even know where it's located. But I thought, wow, that's awesome. And that's been impactful for her. Those stories that I come home and share, or and those experiences have made an impact. And so I think, honestly, one of the biggest impact of our public interest work does relate back to those closest to us, whether it be family or friends. The education that I've received by volunteering or being involved, especially at Timpanogos Legal Center, has really enhanced my opportunity to serve some of those family members that are closest to me.
Thank
and
you.
friends.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Tat, do you want to share?
I do. I was just typing an answer in the chat for one of the questions, but I'll just say that, when I'm feeling overwhelmed in my life, sometimes the not obvious or not I'll just say not obvious, because there's another phrase I'm trying to think of, but it's not coming to me. But the not obvious answer would be do service, but it really is such the times that I've been able to provide help on expungement day to help clear someone's criminal record, or assist volunteers who are doing that, or go to Wills for Heroes, or participate in some kind of clinic or on a pro bono case, have been really very fulfilling and very re-energizing to me. Now, obviously, it's not always going to be that way, and everybody's circumstances are different, but there really are pro bono opportunities doing legal work and opportunities to serve in other ways in our community with our legal degree that just can be very very rewarding. And I do feel that, and studies have shown that doing charity work and serving in the community has health benefits as well. It lowers your heart rate and your blood pressure and things like that. And so it really is such a blessing to be able to do it. And really, I feel like I get as much benefit out of it as the people that we're serving too. So
I absolutely feel that same way. It's several years ago, I had cancer, and it was a pretty aggressive cancer, but they did catch it early, but they put me on aggressive chemo. Aggressive is the password for it's really going to knock you out, and during that time, I just kept thinking, please make me healthy enough that I can still go to the clinic on Tuesday nights, because I was running that clinic at that time. And that sounds like, oh, I'm not saying that to say, oh, I'm so noble. It was actually the opposite. It was really for me, because the hard thing about having cancer is, like, you're never not thinking about what treatment am I supposed to be doing, all of the other health consequences. People are asking you about it all the time. It's just so hard to get away from that problem when you're experiencing it. It becomes very consuming. And the clinic was the one place that I could go where, for the 4 hours I was there, I wasn't thinking for 1 second about cancer, not 1 second. The whole time I was thinking about what are the things that we can do for this person, and I could constructively help someone get out of a bad situation and get to something else. And when I would, drive away from the clinic that night, most of the time I was thinking, dear Heavenly Father, thank you that cancer is my problem, because it was so much better. I have the health insurance, I have a wonderfully supportive family, everybody's expressing love, I have all of this, and I'm looking at all of these clients who are facing these horrible, horrible problems who don't have that. And it was just such a centering experience that once again, it wasn't about, oh, being noble, trying to do this while you have cancer. It was about that helped me so much get through that really difficult experience. And when we have attorneys who come, and they're not the ones that come every week because they have really busy practices, but they come sometimes. And it's that feeling of just being able to do something for someone else with no expectation of payment or getting anything out, where you really are just focused on taking care of the needs of that person. It kind of, I think, gives that deep breath again of, okay, now I'm ready to go out and do the work of the billable hours and all of the other things, all of the other demands on the time. And there really is something very cathartic about helping people that are just really, they don't have any other options. And I completely agree with the health benefits that come from it. I can testify that really is a true thing. All right. Well, I think we just have, are we supposed to stop now, Jenny, or
if there's some questions, we can take a couple minutes.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Oh, okay. So the question about, so there was a question about malpractice insurance, because that's a lot of people are in that situation where they would love to do some work, but maybe they're in-house counsel somewhere and they don't have insurance that would cover their nonprofit work. Most nonprofits have insurance for their volunteers. So that might be the perfect situation for you. Instead of just doing a case that you find in your ward yourself where you wouldn't have that protection, doing it under an agency often will. So you should check with the agencies that you might be working with, because most of the time they are going to be able to provide malpractice for you. And as Tat so ably put in the chat, there are a lot of jurisdictions that have rules. If you're on inactive status because you're retiring, or you're a stay-at-home parent at that time, we have rules in Utah that allow you, as long as you're attached to a certain organization. So there's a paperwork process that you have to go through. But once you have that, you can actually practice for the clients that you're working for under that agency's direction. So there's a lot of ways that now we're trying to open up more possibilities for being able to do community work using your license, where you can still have protections like malpractice and once again, then kind of mentoring and support to be able to do it, so that that you're not going to run amok in doing that. Were there any other questions that I missed as I was, let's see. Oh, yes, I agree with Tat's comment on it being counterintuitive. Good. Does maybe a last question we can put out there for anyone, if you know of some agencies or projects that are looking for volunteers and you want to make a plug for a project that you know about that you think others might be interested in, go ahead and put that in the chat. I think that's organizations like J. Reuben Clark Law Society are a great way to talk to other people about what have they been involved in, and you might find something that speaks to you, that you would love to do the same kind of work. And if you have a project, this is a great place. Put it out there. Let people know about places where you've found other really great people that are involved, and it's something that would be worthwhile. We have a great resource here in just associations like this. All right. Great. Well, thank you for your attendance today. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I think I've got all the comments. Thanks for your attendance. I hope you got some good ideas or feedback on being leaders in the community. There's so many different ways to do it. We hope that you'll feel support and feel like you have the right avenues to approach in getting involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody, for your inspiring words. We so appreciate all your time and being with us. We are now going to leave and go back to the main room. You can leave the breakout room and come back to the main room for our closing session.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.